federal government has collected another 4.6 trillion naira loan from the Central Bank of Nigeria. Well, that's according to the latest data from the Debt Management Office. This brings the total federal government's borrowing from the CBN through Ways and Means advances to 22.07 trillion naira, amounting to $47 billion as of August 2022, compared to 17.4 trillion naira it stood as at the end of December 2021. According to the report, the FG interest payments on Ways and Means advances amounted to 365.82 billion naira, with no budgetary provision in the review period. Now, Ways and Means advances is a temporary loan facility used by the central bank to finance the federal government in periods of temporary budget shortfalls, subject to limits imposed by the law. Meanwhile, reactions have continued to trail the proposed 20.51 trillion naira proposed appropriation bill. That's the budget presented to the Joint Assembly by the President of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari. Speaking earlier today on TVC News' flagship business program, Business Nigeria, the chief consultant at B. Adedipe Consultants and Associate Limited, Dr. Biodun Adedipe, who was also a former advisor to President Olusegun Obasanjo, expressed concerns over the country's rising fiscal deficit amid dwindling revenue and performance trajectory. He maintains that efforts must be made to improve the country's revenue collection to meet up with the projected expenditure in the 2023 budget.
What we see today is a reflection of the choices, decisions, and actions that we took yesterday. So the budget now says, okay, this is what we expect next year. We are now making plans to say these are the things we want to do for the following reasons. So that also tells us if we execute this budget, where we are likely to find ourselves. So these are the issues we want to interrogate. So now, it means in essence that for us, the first thing we observe here is that debt service is very key here, accounting for 30.8%. But why is that so? We find that history also in what we had to do in the last 7 years, and even before then, how our sovereign debt has been growing. But again, two critical things we ask here, and that will also guide our further interrogation of the budget when the National Assembly begins to look at the numbers and the drivers of the numbers.
Well, moving on, as Nigeria's infrastructure deficit continues to widen, the federal government has been urged to extensively engage the private sector as a means of creating an innovative approach to financing infrastructure projects. President of the Association of Capital Market Academics of Nigeria, Professor Uche Waleke, also made this known in an exclusive chart on Business Nigeria earlier today. He noted that macroeconomic and regulatory environment needs to improve to inspire confidence of investors in infrastructure funding within public-private partnership framework.
As we speak, at present, what the country spends on infrastructure is on the average $3 billion a year. And I've told you that we need, by that plan, by that document, we need to spend up to $150 billion. So you can see the gap. 150 minus 3 is a very huge gap. Okay? Now, what the government has done, is to also see how the private sector can come in through some innovative schemes. Bridge infrastructure in this country is not what the government alone can do. The private sector needs to play a lot of roles. So PPP, public-private partnership, is being promoted. And as I mentioned earlier, some innovative schemes in infrastructure financing are also being considered.
In other news, an MSME forum has been established to aid activities of the MSME industry in Nigeria. The forum, with 156 operators' membership strength, has a 5-year strategic plan and plans for the establishment of an MSME bank. Lara Folayan reports.
The inauguration of a forum for operators of the micro, small and medium enterprises in Nigeria. 165 MSMEs are associated with the forum. The forum has a 5-year strategic plan which is to help boost activities of the industry as well as push the players at all levels towards having inputs in the implementation of government policies as they affect the sector.
A lot of things could be done because there are a lot of rejection for Nigeria products abroad because of quality. And the federal government is equally very much aware of it, and they are working assiduously to achieve desirable results.
These provide a fuel for the livelihood of any nation's microeconomy and are critical for the development of commodity value chains. For example, it's on record that MSMEs in Nigeria account for more than 84% of total jobs in the country. Consequently, they constitute the hub of socio-economic development in the nation.
The forum also has plans for the establishment of an MSME bank for meeting financial needs of members against the backdrop of limitations on accessing credits from financial institutions for business growth.
Talk about the number of people operating at that sector. There are in millions, but they fail to come together and talk with one voice. So if we continue to talk with one voice, with our problems to the government, things will improve.
SMEs are the engine block for development in all nations of the world. And the role that this forum is going to play is going to be very vital. And that is why CBN cannot do without.
The forum is hoping its assistance in the sector will change the narrative of inadequate support from government. It is optimistic the existence of business membership support groups like its own will aid the MSME industry's growth, thereby improving the industry's contribution to gross domestic product while enhancing its non-oil foreign exchange earnings. Lara Folayo, TVC News, Abuja.
Asian stocks slipped today after a surprise drop in U.S. unemployment quashed any thoughts of a pivot on policy tightening ahead of a reading on inflation, which is expected to see core prices move higher again. Geopolitical tensions added to the uncertainty as market waited to see how the Kremlin might respond to the blast that hit Russia's only bridge to Crimea. MSCI's broadest index of Asian Pacific shares out of Japan shed 1.4%. S&P 500 futures led the early action with a drop of 0.4%. Nasdaq futures fell 0.5% ahead of the start of Q3 earnings later this week. Chinese blue chips fell 0.9% after the survey showed the first contraction in services activities in 4 months. Eurostock 50 futures lost 0.8%. FTSE futures dipped 0.4%. Saudi Aramco says it will supply crude oil to at least 7 customers in Asia in November, ahead of the peak winter season. The producer is keeping supplies to Asia steady, despite likely production cuts by tapping on inventories. According to reports, the full supply allocation comes despite a decision by OPEC and its allies to lower their output target by 2 million barrels per day. Meanwhile, Saudi Energy Minister Abdulaziz bin Salman has hinted that the real supply cut will be about 1 million to 1.1 million barrels per day.